Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Your Way podcast. So, continuing last time's theme of sharing incredible interviews from other podcasts that I've been on while I'm off in Bali, enjoying myself or whatever's happening. I'm sure you'll find out when I get back. Um, Today I have the most incredible and also by far the longest podcast interview that I've ever done with an incredible guy called Mitch Webb. So, Mitch properly did his homework before he interviewed me, and it is fair to say, hence the name of this podcast, that no stone was left unturned. So, if you want to know literally everything there is to know about me, from the childhood trauma, the burnout, the corporate, the relationship, the healing journey, the realization that I did, in fact, have some childhood trauma and some things that needed to be looked at, and the incredible amounts of denial before that realization, all the way through to the awakening journey, the witch stuff, all of it, it is all covered. And it was such a fun episode and such a fun conversation. The time absolutely flew by. I think we had a 20-minute chat catch up before Mitch hit recording. And I think this podcast is about 2 hours and 10 minutes long. I promise you it's worth the investment in your time. Um, so dive in, enjoy, and please come and let either myself or Mitch know how you got on, what your takeaways are, what resonated. And I suppose if I was going to try and give you any takeaways, it's first of all to remember that I'm talking about a 7 year journey since I properly started the personal development work. But also, this is a culmination of 40 years. So wherever you are at, there is absolutely something in here for you. But also at the same time, just remembering that wherever you are at right now on your journey is absolutely perfect for you. So without further ado, here is the episode. Enjoy, and I will see you back as normal in a couple of weeks with an episode to be confirmed at this point.
All right. I wanted to start this episode with a thank you to Louise. This is the first time we've actually met in person virtually from across the pond here. But I think back in 2023, I started my journey, started hearing about the nervous system, learning about trauma, and Louise is like popped up on LinkedIn. I used to be really active there. And she was like one of the first people outside of Irene, Peter Levine, um, Gabor Mate that I saw is doing nervous system work, and she's always been so kind and receptive, and always giving tips and sharing content, and really sending voice messages, going out of her way to be a resource for me. And so I'm really excited to be here on the show with you. And I just wanted to open up with a big thank you for being such a mentor, a resource, and a friend that I could really reach out to when I didn't know what the hell was going on with some of this stuff.
What a lovely start to the podcast. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that because it's lovely to hear. It's lovely to hear lovely words.
Hmm.
And thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to dive in. We had a little bit of a pre-chat, didn't we? So I know some of what's coming.
Yeah, yeah, we pretty much talked about everything that we're going to talk about. So this will just be a part two for us. We have such similar stories of early childhood, being in the corporate world. I wrote down that you're a lawyer gone rogue, and as I am, I left the corporate world and started my own business. And you've got your coaching practice, and it seems like that's morphed a little bit. But I want to go back to this quote that I wrote down. I was listening to your podcast, and it was, the way I'm living my life is not conducive to my health. Do you remember that quote?
I mean, I don't remember specifically saying it,
Yeah.
but not on the podcast. But yeah, absolutely. And I remember talking about that a lot. Um, Do you want me to just dive in and talk a bit about that?
I would love. I want to know like the backstory. It's like this. What I want the audience to hear is this. Where was Louise at before she decided to go on this journey and be a lawyer gone rogue?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess if I go back to being like 14, 15, 16, we had
Mm,
these planners at school and you had to write down your goals in the planner about what you wanted to get in your exam results. And there was this big shift for me because I remember to begin with, I didn't want anything below a C at sort of age 13, 14. And then by the time I got to 16, I didn't want anything below an A.
mm,
And it was like this big perfectionism thing kicked in of like,
yeah.
I need to be perfect in order to be acceptable, in order to be loved. I need to be perfect. This is what I need to do. I didn't really have a clear what do I want to do with my career, but I understood very, very clearly it was very important to do something that looked good, that paid me a lot of money, that would had like this clear career path, and that I needed to work very, very hard to do
Mm,
it because that's what you did if you wanted to be successful. So I picked law because it sounded good.
mm,
Literally, that was it. Law sounds good. So I go off to university and I do my law degree. Um, and And then in terms of, okay, how did this then manifest into a lifestyle that was not conducive for my health?
mm-hmm,
So I think, first of all, I picked something that I thought looked good and would make my parents happy, not necessarily what it was that I wanted to do or what I
mm-hmm,
enjoyed. I found the environment very, very stressful. There was a culture where you worked all of the hours, you gave everything in law and lots of professional services firms. And I don't know if it was like this where you worked in corporate, you had to record your time to a client. Every 6 minutes of your hour had to be assigned somewhere. So you no longer owned your time, right?
wow.
Every minute of your working day had to be justified and had to be put down somewhere.
Mm,
The work requirements, the team, the stress, the expectations were off the charts. And so, not conducive to health to me looked like, from a work perspective, waking up about 4 a.m., often having been awake between like 1 and 3 because I couldn't sleep,
mm-hmm.
too wound up to go back to sleep, getting up, getting on the first tube into London, thinking I was doing myself good by going to the gym before work. Because that was like the bit for me for the day that was going to
Mm-hmm,
help set me up for the day.
mm-hmm.
So I would go and do, to begin with, like spin classes, but later I got into weight training. So I would go and do a 90-minute weight training session on, get ready, because I know the kind of work you do. So I know you're going to enjoy this information. A coffee and a Monster energy drink.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, caffeine. Caffeine was my friend. Then I would go into work. I would have these crazy, crazy long days at work, like intense back-to-back meetings. Did not realize at the time that I'm an introvert, but there was no white space in my day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm back-to-back meetings, desperately trying to keep up with email, desperately trying to keep up with queries from people. Um, Also desperately wanting to be thin. So didn't no fat in my diet,
Mm-hmm.
basically no carbs. I ate a lot of protein bars. I did eat some sushi actually. There was some rice in there, but basically I was starving myself. I wasn't sleeping. I was over exercising and really pushing my body, um, and existing on like crazy amounts of caffeine. I mean, like I could have had eight coffees, Monster energy drinks, sometimes two, Diet Coke, cups of tea, cups of tea. And then in the afternoon, I'd need a little pick me up, but I couldn't let myself have too much because I really needed to be thin because I was overweight as a teenager, right? So I'd done
Mm-hmm.
that whole journey, but I was in
Mm-hmm.
there like I just need to be thin because that's how people are gonna love me phase.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I might have had like a little pack. They're probably still massive over there, but we have actually little packs of sweets. A
Oh.
little pack of like a 40-gram pack of peanut M&Ms or something in the afternoon, and that was my like how do I my little sugar fix to get through. And then I'd go home and I would crash out, have some dinner, crash out in front of the TV to go back to bed, to go back to work the next day. And it was just this like never-ending perpetual cycle of over pushing, over giving, constantly working, constantly stressed. Spent my weekends trying to recover, but then I would want to do things on the weekend. Um, And that's just my outer world, right? That's
Hmm.
just my outer world. Forget all the stuff that's going on in my head at the same time. But that's kind of an overview of not conducive to health in
Yeah.
many, very, in many.
I totally get it because that was me working in the corporate world and slowly waking up to the fact that yeah, this isn't conducive for health. And if I'm gonna, I think I was just thinking of survival at that time. If I was gonna survive, then I've got to start doing some things differently, and I got to learn about health. And now, did you, from that point of realizing like, oh man, that this is not conducive for my health, did you go right into the mental emotional work, or was there a period of like doing and managing and fixing? Did you get into any of that?
So I got really, really into nutrition. So there was
Mhm.
a shift. There was a
Yeah.
shift where I was trying to eat better, but there's still this background preoccupation of like, but I need to be thin. So I probably
Mm.
still wasn't eating properly. But I had a really, really solid understanding of, macros, nutrition, what was good for me, what I should be doing. So I did go to bed. I sort of did go to bed crazy early. But there were things that I tried to do, but I stopped when my body stopped.
Mm. And when
So
you
it
say
wasn't like
stop, is that the fatigue? Is that what you mean when the body stop?
I mean like just no, I just mean like full on burnout. Like I just pushed myself until I fell over. Like it's lovely to have that story of like, oh, you pay attention to your body. And I used to say, if you listen to your body when it whispers, you don't have to hear it scream. No, my body just screamed. I got to the point where awake every morning in floods of tears, couldn't cope. I had this rash on my neck, rash on my face. I started getting the thing that really got me. I started getting tingling in my hands and feet. And I had a blood test. They wanted to do a blood test to see if I'd got MS. And at that point, I was like, shit, have I pushed myself to an autoimmune disease here?
Yeah. Which is so
Um,
common with trauma.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So and I wasn't really willing to admit that I wasn't okay. So in the UK, sorry, US people, we get a lot more holiday time than you do.
Mm.
So I took 4 weeks of annual leave in one go, um, in the hope that it would press the reset button. And during that time, just realized that I wasn't okay.
Is that when you said to your husband, I believe, you said like something about you hadn't had a menstrual cycle in like 2 years, and you're like, if during this 4 week cycle, if I get my period, then that's the sign.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Talk about early intuition there.
I know, right? But so it was like the 20th of September 2018. And it was like literally 3 weeks later, I'm like feeling crap in my body. I'm like, why is everything hurting? And then I had my period and I hadn't had one. I'd come off the pill in December 2016. So almost 2 years later, hadn't had a period. Like
Wow.
so again, lifestyle clearly not conducive to health.
Well, and that's pointing to the nervous, or excuse me, the hormonal dysregulation that's going on under the surface. Not to mention, trying to come off of a hormone pill. Now we're trying to regulate the nervous system, and we know when that happens because I've been on testosterone replacement, and I expected my testosterone to be perfect all the time because now I'm taking it exogenously. But man, when that fatigue comes on, when the freeze, the collapse, luckily I got to see it drop. But it sounds like were seeing it in a different way. Like I got to see it in the labs, but that period of taking some time off, it was like, oh, this is what we really need more of.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
massively. And so I worked for big corporate.
Hmm.
And so they had something, I don't know if you have it over there, but it's kind of common over here with big corporates. They have something called an employee assistance scheme. So I
Mm.
use the employee assistance scheme to get my 6 free sessions, because like that's enough, my 6 free sessions of therapy.
Yeah.
And at the end of those 4 weeks, I go to the doctor and I'm signed off work with stress. So this all happens in conjunction in the kind of the fall. See, look, I changed autumn to fall there. In the
Yeah.
fall,
Yeah. Yeah.
in the fall of 2018. Now, my perfectionism A-type personality was very, very strong.
Hmm.
And I did not like in any way, there was a lot of shame about the fact that I was not okay. So whilst it has served me well, there was this very, very strong driver of I am going to do everything and anything that needs to be done so that I never feel this way again.
Hmm.
It was this very strong, clear thing. So so I go to the therapist. So I immediately start doing the talk therapy. I go to the therapist and I go to the therapist with one clear intention. I want you to help me decide whether or not I'm done with law or if I want to go back to law. And she kept wanting to talk about my family. And I'm like,
Hmm.
why does she want to talk about my family? I'm like, I just want to talk about whether or not I want to carry on being a lawyer.
Yeah.
And there was, I've no idea what we talked about, but there was some kind of family scenario that I'd shared. And she said, she was like, you do know that's not normal and that's not healthy and that's
Mm.
quite a dysfunctional dynamic.
Hmm. What was
And
it
it
like to
really
hear that for the first time? Like, hey, that's not normal. That's horrible.
It was confronting, and
Mm.
it wasn't like, oh, it wasn't like this like great ease came over me, and I was like, oh, now it all makes sense. It was more like, you can't attack my family. Family is everything. Like all of that stuff that we get conditioned around. Like family is everything. And what do you mean it's not normal? And then we talked about like some of the dynamics between my husband and my parents. And I was like, oh, and he always misbehaves when we go and see my parents. And the therapist was like, he's actually doing the right thing. And I sort of would come back from the therapy session with my tail between my legs and be like, so the therapist says, the therapist says that maybe it's not you that was in the wrong. And, and maybe you were just behaving like an adult in a room full of children.
Mm.
That kind of kicked things off.
So you were used to abandoning yourself to stay in connection with the family, and whenever he wasn't getting in line with the family, and you're going, whoa, 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 like that's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like you go home, you play by the rules, you don't challenge dad. You don't challenge dad.
Yeah.
Right? This is how we behave. And it's almost like that thing of and I don't know the sort of the stuff that you've done with Irene, but the way I see it is like the emotional bargaining of like, so it's like we accept this neurosis or we accept this pattern, all of these like unsaid rules
Yes.
of
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I'm going to accept this dysfunction. You're going to accept this dysfunction. This is how we're all going to play in our dysfunctional world, and none of us are going to look at any of it. Um, and this is how it is, and we don't challenge it. And this is our perfect happy family.
Our perfect happy family.
Our perfect happy family, where everyone's just perfectly happy all of the time, and
Mm.
isn't it great?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so I don't want to zip forward. So that's my level of awareness, 2018.
Oh, I mean, I can so relate to that. Um, I imagine this conversation that I'm referencing was probably in 2015-ish, but I remember my functional medicine doctor going like, "We need to talk about your childhood trauma." And I same reaction. I was like, "How dare you?" My family was perfect. And also later on, I guess 2021, reading the body keeps the score,
Mm.
and getting to the childhood trauma place and just rolling my eyes and flipping past the chapter.
So let's forward to 2019 now. I start working with my first coach, right? Start working
Yeah.
with my first coach. She recommends Body Keeps the Score.
Mm.
And I think she also recommended Waking the Tiger,
Yes, Peter Levine.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm like, why does she keep recommending trauma books to me? But I'm working as a
You
coach at
don't
this
even,
point.
so you're not even, so you haven't identified your that you have trauma.
100%.
That was
100%.
me too.
No,
Yeah, me too.
right. Didn't had not identified that I had trauma. I'm like, why is she recommending trauma books to me? But at this point, I've started working with clients, right? Because the perfectionist in me doesn't get signed off work and rest. She gets
Hmm.
signed off work and goes to do a 1 year professional diploma in coaching.
Oh yeah.
because I'd already decided I wanted to do that, but very much from the like career coaching, do not make me work with people's emotions perspective.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we're kind of working through stuff,
Hold on, hold on,
working
hold
through.
on. I got to pause right there. I don't mean to interrupt you. So explain to me the coaching that you were doing because it sounds like were you helping people with their trauma and their nervous system
Oh
when
no,
you hadn't
no,
identified it in
no,
yourself?
no.
Okay, okay,
No.
okay.
Right. So early on in 2018, I realized I didn't want to keep doing my job anymore. My
Hmm.
sister worked for Mars and she had a coach, US company, very much like everyone have coaching. And I said, I went and met up with her one day. I said, the only part of my job I enjoy is developing and leading and helping people because
Hmm.
I'm running a team of lawyers at this point. And she was like, well, what about coaching?
Hmm.
She's like, I've got a coach. Like, I think you'd be quite good at it. It's quite flexible. And I'm just like desperate to get out. So most people do coaching, don't they? It changes their lives and then they're like, I need to go and do this and help other people. That was not my experience. I was like, I need to get the fuck out of Dodge, right? Oh, coaching sounds good. I'm Googling coaching. And then I literally email in from the office at my desk, email this coaching company. I'm like, I haven't got any coaching qualifications. I haven't got any coaching experience, but I have been leading and managing people for 10 years. Please, can I come and work for you?
Yeah.
Anyway, God love her. The head of recruitment messages me back to be like, no, um, but uh, no, but she offered to have a call with me
Hmm.
about what coaching was, why did I think I was maybe interested in it, and all of the rest of it. And she then referred me to a lady who became my first one-on-one coach, who was doing this 6-week program called
Okay.
Unconventional Coaching for Coaches, which I did during that 4-week period of being off.
Hmm.
And then the 2 weeks after that, and I was like, oh, this is something that I'm really interested in. But I'm just desperate to get out of law at this point, right?
Hmm.
I know I love helping people. I know I love making a difference to people. And I think actually and helping people progress in their careers and get promotions and all of that is stuff that I've been doing as a lawyer.
Hmm.
So I just think I'm going to become a career coach. So I do a diploma in professional coaching practice with these additional certificates in career coaching and team coaching. So 2019, I'm just helping people with their careers,
Okay. Okay.
right? So I'm no going nowhere near any of the stuff. So the coach recommends these trauma books to me. I'm thinking, is she recommending these? She must be recommending these trauma books to me because I'm talking to her about some of my clients who have clearly got some trauma. Okay. No,
That's great.
but this gets worse. The next year, 2020, we have all the COVID joys.
Yeah.
I don't get to see anyone in my family for months because that's how it went down. But there's this great unraveling of some of the dynamics within my family. And after about a year of working with this coach, she talks about narcissism and
Oh
narcissists.
my God. Are we the same person? I'm freaking out right now.
Right?
Yeah.
So I do all of this work, I have this greater understanding. Still very much in denial. There's no trauma in my life, though. Still no
Hmm.
trauma in my life. 2021, I start a mastermind. And in that mastermind, one of the ladies in there is sharing about how she helps clients and the process she takes them through. I read the process and I'm like, my husband really needs that.
Ah!
My husband really needs that. I'm no contact with my parents at this point. We've had this big blowout in
Hmm.
2020, right? And I've still got no trauma. I've still got no trauma. Um, and we were encouraged within this mastermind to do peer coaching. And I was like, oh, well, we can talk about our different offers and do peer coaching and we can do some trauma stuff as well. And she was really good with her boundaries. She was like, well, no, if we're talking about trauma stuff, that's a consult. That's not peer coaching within this business mastermind. And so we had a consult, and it was kind of then that it was then that sort of the penny dropped of like, oh, I do have some trauma.
Mm.
There's some stuff here that's been, and I love the definition of trauma of anything too much, too fast, too soon. or too little for too long, or anything that overwhelms the nervous system.
Yep.
Because I think for so many, it's like, well, if I haven't been sexually assaulted, or I haven't been to war, or I haven't been in some catastrophic car accident, then it isn't trauma. Anything else, there's all this like stigma around it. No one likes the word trauma. But yeah, so it was a slow burn. It was a slow burn, which is why I've got a lot of compassion for the people in a lot of denial.
Well, you're making me feel better about my journey and for the listeners, we get into this, especially if we come from a world of biohacking like I did, and a world hooked on Amazon Prime and next day delivery, and we think it's all just going to happen overnight. We go to this 6 week course and we're going to be healed. And it is a layer, and it's not linear. It is circular because you are revisiting these things over and over and over again. And it is. And if we went fast, and threw somebody in the deep end of the pool, that's where you get your ass kicked, right? And so it's probably, I imagine if you look back, it's the way that it should have been, is this slow unwinding, peeling back the layers, not this cathartic, rip the band-aid off and jump into the deep end of the pool type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and for me as well, it had to be gentle because what I then recognized was, so at this point, so I'm 33 when I get signed off work with stress and leave law. So at this point, say I'm 36, I basically had spent 36 years completely dissociated, checked out, and all of the rest of it. Like there was no way I could be like, oh, let's everything come back online right now in
Oh
one go.
yeah.
Like it had to be a very gentle, slow burn. But also there was so much conditioning there. I was so enmeshed with my dad,
Hmm.
like so enmeshed with my dad, all of these things going on that were really, really hard to look at. So I could only look at things to the extent that I had the capacity to look at them. And it's interesting, I'm sitting here with my pen going around like this, and you talked about the circle, and I see it as it's sort of similar, but like the spiral.
Yeah.
So it's not like we necessarily come back at the exact same point. It's like we've gone a bit deeper, but we're coming back on the same themes over and over and over again
Yeah.
until, I mean,
And
who
that's
knows,
what
maybe one day.
that revisiting can feel like, damn, I am not making any progress. But each time, and what would scare the shit out of me was, oh my God, I'm going backwards.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and now it's like, oh no, this is a new understanding. And it's kind of like the more, and that's why education is so important. And having a coach, having a mentor, whatever that may be, because we need to hear that over and over and over and over
Yeah.
and over and over and over and over again. Sometimes that, about what's going on. I don't know about you, but I had to really, I wanted to intellectualize things, understand so that I could control it. Because that's the only type of safety that I understood was if I really controlled something. And a lot of this work is, letting go a little bit at a time and observing.
Yeah, but I think for certain people in certain camps, and let's just blanket ourselves in like high performers.
Mm,
Let's give ourselves a high performing badge, no.
yeah.
But there is a benefit and there is a need to intellectualize at a certain point. Like there might be a
Hmm.
point that goes. But I think the thing that I like about the spiral is because if you think about the spiral going down or up, whichever way you want to see it, although you come back to the same point, you aren't coming back to the same point at the same level because like you're
Right.
moving down the spiral or up the spiral, whichever way you want to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I think and that's been really helpful for me. And yes, you're right, we do need to be reminded over and over again. It's like you're not back at square one.
Hmm.
It's not like it's all pointless because
Hmm.
like the awareness is different, the experience is different, the response is different. It's like, but now you're being asked to look at the next layer of the spiral or the
Hmm.
circle.
And with the next layer, there's more fatigue, there's more activation, there's more shutdown. And it's like, I'm curious too, if you're, because this is something I've dealt with, this is something a lot of my clients are dealing with, is this burnout. And it sounds like the burnout happened in 2018. So I have two questions here. Was the burnout already there? And what did it look like healing that? Like, how long did that take?
Okay, so I reckon I had probably low level burnout ish. I kind of like low like I was on, let's say I was on the brink of burnout for years and years and years. I had a reprieve. I did a 12-month secondment in a job in 20 May 2015 to May 2016, where I didn't do law for a year. I did an internal secondment, and that was amazing. It was like project management, people management. Like I was really in my sweet spot. I was actually working 9 till 5. I
Mm,
didn't have to do time recording, which is like the thing with the 6-minute chunks. Like none of that
hmm.
had to happen, and that was lovely. But otherwise, I would say I was probably on the brink, yeah, for probably about 15 years.
That makes sense
Um,
because it's
and
like it's like we're just not connected to the body. And once we start
yeah,
paying attention, we see it's like we've been running in fight or flight for our whole life, and stepping off of that is exhausting. Also, just seeing all the stuff like, hey, Louise, your family dynamic was not perfect, and you had trauma, and all of that is just like it's a lot to swallow and chew on.
yeah. Yeah, it is a lot to swallow, especially when you carry that like perfectionism thing of
Yes.
like, well, no, everything needs to be great. And so like that can't be true. And also the thing that's very, very common of you kind of hold your parents on a pedestal, and so you've made yourself wrong. So my
Hmm.
entire life, I carried this belief, which I call my core wound
Hmm.
of I am not lovable, I am hard to love.
Hmm.
And so I went to great, great lengths to try and work around that, right?
Hmm.
Which is where the perfectionism came in, the people pleasing came in. All obviously we now know, understand that that's all trauma responses, but
Hmm.
I didn't know that at the time.
Same.
Um, so I can't remember what I was going to say. You're gonna have to help me.
Ah, let's see if we can dig you out here. So you had we were talking about the fatigue, and like you
Oh
discovered
yes,
that
the
in
burnout.
18.
How did I get over the burnout?
Yeah, and you said you had a reprieve. So does that mean in the reprieve, does that mean like so you had this thing for 15 years likely. It really surfaced in 2018. It sounds like there was a period of time for like a year when you were not, getting your butt kicked by the lawyer job.
Yeah.
And are you saying like the fatigue stopped? It got better?
Well, I don't know that I ever. No, I still slept terribly. I still slept terribly, but I don't know that I ever let myself feel the fatigue. This is the interesting thing. Like, it's funny. Like when I look back, of course I was exhausted, but I was exhausted, but on autopilot and checked out. And I mean, like the caffeine,
That's
the
what I was thinking.
caffeine.
As you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, she was mega dosing herself
The
with caffeine.
caffeine.
And
Yeah,
and like
the
think about
caffeine.
that too, like because I know, I mean, dysfunctional sleeping, waking up at 4 a.m., like your hair's on fire, um, skipping breakfast. Thank you, hormone dysfunction now, and throwing the caffeine down, going to work out, hitting it hard all day long, and then just crashing at the end of the day. And it's like, of course, the system is exhausted,
Yeah,
and we just
yeah.
keep plugging and keep going because we're taught that that's just what you do to be good enough.
Yeah, yeah. And so in terms of the burnout recovery, this is probably the like how not to do it plan to begin with. So I'm
Mm,
still deep in the people pleasing. I'm still deep in the perfectionism. Like my awareness isn't really there. I haven't done the personal work. So I do my coaching. So I do my coaching diploma. I start taking on clients early in 2019. And I do it gently because I haven't really got the energy to
mm.
do a lot. So there was lots of like lying in the garden, but always multitasking. So like lying in the garden, listening to trainings.
Oh
Like the
my
actual
God,
like
quick, hey, get out of my head right now.
so I'm like kind of like I'm sort of half resting because I'm not out walking or doing stuff, but I'm not allowing myself to rest or take care of myself.
Hmm.
And so that kind of carried on. And then it was yeah, so it was 2021. So it was quite a long time later. So I sort of felt somewhat better at this point. But it's 2021 that I then start learning about so the lady that I did the trauma and the nervous system stuff, the somatic stuff with, I'd also studied with a lady called Dr. Amy Pigeon, who
Mm,
works a lot with like the biology of trauma.
okay.
So then that was also around like, well, what's the food choices we could make that support the system, or like
Hmm.
what's some of the supplements we might want to take. And like I'm like, even things like, I'm a woman and like I've got cells
Imagine
and
that.
like and my cell walls need like a nice healthy layer of fat around them to function.
Hmm.
And like ATP is a thing, and like what how do we fuel for all of these things to happen? So I started to learn that. But to be honest, for me, the shift came when I confronted my relationship with caffeine,
Hmm.
right? And then lots of these things happen in tandem.
The relationship with so your caffeine was your main tool to override the fatigue, and so you stared that in the face and said, "What?"
Well, no, the caffeine was the main tool to override
That's what I'm saying.
the freeze response that I didn't know was
Mm,
there. Right.
mm.
So it's still at this point. So we're 2021 and I'm learning all of these things. And I'm like, I've always been very anxious, but I've never had depression. I've never been depressed. I've never been low. So even when I first started learning about like, the different phases, the nervous system responses, I was like, well, there isn't any like before I understood that freeze is always a component of a trauma response. I was like, well, there isn't any freeze in my system because I've just always in that high
Same.
sympathetic fight
That's what
or
I thought
flight,
too. Yeah.
right? So then I learned about caffeine and I'm like, okay, I need to drastically reduce my caffeine. Well, let's just say that I had spent a very long time overriding the overwhelm that was in my system.
Hmm.
And what was actually there was just this chronic freeze, this chronic shutdown, and at this point, I am hit with a wall of tired, a wall of tired like nothing I've ever known. And even now, so I was saying broadly over past the burnout, I'm well regulated, my capacity's good, all of the rest of it. Even now, most days I will still have a nap in the day
Hmm.
to
And the
like to
difference
be
is
to
now you can rest.
now I can rest. Yeah. And so the rest thing happened probably later on in 2021, maybe early in 2022, and it was doing internal family systems therapy stuff. So like
Hmm.
parts work in a child. And I made contact with this 12-year-old part of me that didn't feel safe to rest. I had a coach that said to me, she said, well, what happened? I said, I find it really hard to stop and rest. She's like, well, what happens when you stop? And I was like, I don't know because I don't do
That is exactly where I'm at right now because
it.
my last session, my therapist goes, how'd she say this? So like we are talking about can we rest like 5% more than what we're doing? I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And she said, when I was in this kind of phase, I used to scare the shit out of myself when I wanted to rest or to motivate myself. And I was like, hmm. And that's what happened maybe 2 weeks ago. I went to rest and I heard this voice of like, you can't do that. If you lay down, you'll never get up. And I was like, oh, wow. And so that's like, oh, now we get to meet this part. And when I recognized that and I started softening my approach to myself, and really questioning parts work is like, oh, here's this part, and it really feels like it can't rest. And so now instead of telling it to shut up or feeding the compulsion that it wants to avoid the thing that I'm avoiding, now I'm gonna move towards it and see what it wants. And it's like it wants safety, it wants belonging, it wants connection, and it's saying, um, yeah, you can't rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And that was the bit for me. So it's I am a little bit more visual now, but back then the only time I really had strong visuals was when I was doing the somatic work. But I had
mm,
this visual of me about age 12, sitting on my bed, my childhood bed, in the dark with my knees bent, in that kind of like curl up.
mm,
They're like so I don't know how much somatic stuff you've done versus nervous system, but that like collapse supportive pose.
yeah.
And I was just so sad. I felt this like real overwhelming sadness in me. And it was like this 12-year-old part of me that's like, if you aren't constantly doing and giving and out there and all the rest of it, you're going to be forgotten. No one's going to
Mm.
notice you. It's like you need to do that stuff in order to be worthy. And there was so much sadness, like so much grief, so much pain that came with that release. But on the other side of that, and then doing some work with that part of me, it allowed me, it created this capacity of, okay, actually, it's okay for me to rest. It's safe for me to rest.
What happened with the caffeine with that realization? Did you cut back? Did you cut it out? Like, Was it okay because it was really more about how you were relating to yourself? Like, how did that?
Oh no, I think so. I basically cut it out, or like went down to like a coffee, and that was it.
Hmm.
Which I think is fine, rather
Yeah.
than like 8 shots of coffee
Yeah.
and all the rest of it. Um, well, no, it was just, but it was very, very confronting because it was like, oh, this is what I've been masking all of this time.
And so you
This
were
is
finally
what's
able
really
to
here.
see the freeze. Like that was me too. I'm real familiar with activation. There's no way I have any freeze because I'm always jumping out of my system. And then the more digging I've done, it's like, oh wow, this is freeze. This is collapse. I
Well,
guess I thought like freeze was a bad thing, and I'm saying that for the audience right now because I hear that from so many people, and while it sucks to not have any fatigue and to literally your body to shut you down, it's so intelligent because we can't, just like we started this conversation, the way we're living is not conducive for health.
yeah. It's such an incredible protective mechanism, right? It's
Exactly.
like it's like the reality of your life right now is too overwhelming for your system, so we're just going to turn everything off.
Hmm.
And then I think this is the challenge again with like the high performer, the perfectionist, the people pleaser. Well, but we're not valid as human beings if we're in this state. So we need to
Hmm.
find a way to override it and push through. And so you can push through with caffeine, you can push through with exercise, you can push through with creating drama, creating argument with your partner, stuff that then pushes the system
Hmm.
up into that high sympathetic, which you can see was my day, right? I started with the caffeine, I went to the gym, I had this stressful, stressful day. And then what happened when I got home? I collapsed again.
Hmm. And likely that felt normal. That felt like what you were supposed to do.
I didn't know any different.
Right.
But this is the wild thing now, because then you do all of this work, you come out the other side, well, as out of the other side as wherever you're at, and then you look around you and you're like, oh, everybody else feels like I used to feel.
Oh yeah. And it's that is sad to see, especially if you're someone that wants to help or rescue or feel responsible
Yeah.
for other people. And it can be lonely.
Oh, it's so lonely.
Mm.
It's so lonely. I can't remember where I've talked about this. It could be a podcast or it could just be me chatting to someone in a group or whatever. But I think there's good reasons why people don't do this work, right? But there is this absolute depth of loneliness because well, I think also a lot of people come to this work and they've already got that kind of narrative of I don't fit in, I'm not like everyone else. I was the black sheep of my family because we're the cycle breakers, right? We're the ones
Hmm.
that are here to be like, yeah, no, we need to do things differently. But then all of a sudden, you don't necessarily relate to the people around you, or you don't want to sit there having a conversation about, I don't know, like a girly thing. I don't want to talk about makeup or clothes or designer brands or what fucking celebrities are doing. I like, couldn't give a shit. I've never really cared, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But like my tolerance for having that level of conversation, and then you're interested in stuff that they think is weird.
Oh yeah.
So there is then this massive isolation, like for me, and it's that you've sort of alluded to it a little bit too. But for me, there's then this thing of like, okay, so I'm gonna have a break from my family for a while. So then you like that's an isolation piece. I did I did a post on Facebook on 2021, I think this was, but where I was trying to help people like work with their shame. And I'd asked my husband about this first, but when we were first together, I had a lot of rage that I didn't know what to do with. And there were times where I would get so angry and so infuriated with him that I would like dig my nails into his arm or like punch his arm. Like, obviously, it's completely not okay.
Hmm.
But the point in me sharing the post was about like being kind to myself, recognizing that I was just doing what had been done to me and working through some of that stuff and the impact that it had on him because he had his own flavor of childhood trauma, which did include a like physically abusive dad. So all non-good, right? But anyway, I'd shared this post on Facebook and his niece had seen it, who had then gone and told her mum, who had told Nat's mum. And then I get this text message from his sister basically saying, you shouldn't be talking about this in public. Like basically, I don't care what's going on. but
So
you
you were
shouldn't be talking
talking
about this
about
stuff.
shame and then you got shamed?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then Nat, who's my husband, said, "Oh, like he's like, don't worry about it. Like she just got a different viewpoint. Mum's gonna get it. It's gonna be fine." And then his mum completely jumped on the bandwagon of like my husband's in this awful, like abusive, toxic marriage, and this woman's awful, and she's terrible. So then there's this like I've been ostracized. I've isolated myself from my family. Then I've been kind of ostracized from his family, and then he went home to see them, and whatever it was that they'd said to him, it kind of got in their heads. And then he came home and he's like, "If you carry on like this, you're gonna have no one left." So you've got this very
Hold on, whoa,
real
whoa, whoa, whoa,
feeling
whoa,
of
whoa, whoa, whoa.
loneliness.
Pause right there. Did I just hear that so you're being ostracized by both families, and then he goes to repair these things, hopefully, and then comes back and tells you you're the problem?
Yeah, yeah. If you carry on like this, you're gonna have no one left. Honestly, my body, I had such a I every now and again when I first started doing the trauma work, I would get this like stomach spasm thing, and I had a stomach spasm thing that day like nothing else.
I
Like
bet.
this is one of the things though, isn't it? Once you start connecting to your body really starts to communicate with you. So yeah, so there was this very real loneliness in that internal loneliness that you feel of like I really don't fit in, people don't get it. But I also had some very real like external stuff coming up at the same time that was hard, but also in a way made me go deeper into, well, actually, what is my path? Do I want to shy away? Do I want to hide? Do I want to fit in? Or do I want to carry on doing this work to be who I am? And it turned out I wanted to carry on.
Yeah, so would you say this is something I wrote down I thought was kind of funny because it's I know there's similarity. So would you say that the $250,000 that you spent on therapy and coaching and courses and healing work was worth it?
100%. 100%. But there
Yeah.
are points in time where it does just feel really, really hard. I had a client recently say to me, she was like, you talk about taking the red pill.
Oh yeah.
And I asked her, I said, well, if you could untake the red pill, would you do it? She was like, I would untake the red
Oh.
pill.
So
Like,
let me ask you this then, because it sounds like you have a lot of experience with this. Like for someone that's going through that's having an awakening.
mm,
Because that's what it is. I mean,
mm,
I think there's different levels. There's the family, there's more personal,
yeah,
there's, my work and what I'm doing, and then there's society and,
yeah.
all of that. So someone that's going through this and is feeling lonely and maybe they feel like they could unred pill themselves, like what resources are out there? What advice or tips would you share with that?
So I think it's really useful if you've got someone who can help you normalize it and be like, yes, there is this loneliness phase, there is this grief phase. The other thing as well to realize is when you've spent the vast majority of your life for a very good reason in the freeze or the collapse or dissociated or whatever word you want to say, a little bit checked out, a little bit disconnected if you want to soften it, the way that we heal is you have to feel all of the hurt that you couldn't feel at the time.
Yeah,
You have to
nobody
feel it
told me that
fresh.
when I signed up.
I know, we wouldn't, would we?
No.
I started this work thinking I had a husband with anxiety and depression and a toxic job, and if I could just sort those two things out, then my life would be perfect.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. It's definitely a them problem. It's not me.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Um. So I think it can be really, really, really useful just to find someone. Doesn't need to be like, I don't mean go and pay people money, but it might be like a group or something that can help you normalize the process. And then also it depends on like your particular flavor of red pill, right? Because like you've said, there are lots of different varieties of awakenings and different things that will happen and different things that will open up.
hmm
And I suppose it's also finding the spaces that can meet you where you're at with that. So I found it really interesting when I was in like coaching groups and people would share about narcissistic family members or talking about
hmm
narcissists or like going no contact with their family and what that was like. And I at that point in time that felt really useful to me. Interestingly, fast forward a few years, I'm back in contact with my family in a way that I never expected would happen. There is some truth in like when you heal the field,
Well, let's
but
let's let's pause a little bit right there because that's
Mhm.
something that I'm dealing with personally is no contact and trying to just navigate that and seeing it felt like I was just the most horrible person in the world because of my conditioning that was very similar to yours. It says family is everything, abandon yourself. And so I love hearing stories about people reconnecting and repairing and healing. Like what was that process look like? Maybe what started that? What let you know? Oh yeah, no, it was a dinner. So very similar to you. There was a family event for me that I went to and I saw all the shit. And it was like everything everywhere all at once. It was too much and I shut down and I said I need some space so that I can heal, um, so that I can be okay. What was that like for you?
so there'd been an 8 month gap during COVID where I hadn't seen them. I'd been doing a lot of work. They came to visit, and I'd actually been doing a lot of work on understanding my mum. And I think I just hadn't really had the capacity to deal with them both. And then when they came to visit, my dad behaved in a certain way, and it was like there was just so much going on. But what was interesting was I was in a place where I felt relatively able. So I didn't know there's no body work been done at this point. So this is all like just mindset, understanding, a couple of years
Mm,
into not being in law anymore. Um, but I got myself, I was quite calm, I was quite regulated, and I went to have a conversation with my dad about like, I'm noticing that like this doesn't feel good. Can we have a conversation about it? And the unwritten rule in our family is you don't challenge dad. And he refused to have the conversation.
same here. It's
Said
exactly what happened.
said anything that had happened was my doing. It was of my own making. And he completely shut down, couldn't even begin to have the start to even didn't even know what the conversation was going to be.
Hmm.
And he made my mum pack up the car and drove back home. And we'd moved at this point, so we lived like 4 hour drive from them. And they left a day early, and I felt like I had been crushed.
Yeah.
Absolutely crushed. Then my mum blamed it on me. She told me that my dad was hungry and that's why he
Yep.
behaved the way he did.
Same here.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And also, but I'd watched my dad overeat the whole weekend, right? So it was like, it wouldn't, and I've got sufficient knowledge of nutrition. Like, I know what's in food. I'm like, that man was not underfed.
Hmm.
But that was kind of the start of it. And I don't know if you've had the same thing, and you might not want to talk about this. But when you decide to go no contact, it's not like sometimes like other family members are like, oh, what you doing? They think it's like this glib thing. Like no child makes an active choice of like from anything other than this feels like an absolute necessity to go no contact with their parents because you have
Oh.
to go through this whole mental gymnastics of okay, well, what if you got a phone call and they've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, or what if you get a phone call and they've died and you've decided to go no contact with them? Like you have to go through, and it's not like this light decision. You go through all of this mental gymnastics and all the conditioning and all the rest of it. But for me, it was just like, I just can't. I actually can't be myself. I can't hear my own voice. I
Yes.
can't hear myself. I can't like, it's like they've morphed into me and I need a bit of space
Hmm.
to be who I am and then figure things out. Um, and I think so. Anyway, so lots and lots and lots of bits to the story. But fast forward about 3 years, and lots of like, and they always go psycho at Christmas time. Like there's
Oh,
always like.
I hate holidays now. Like because of this situation, it's like, oh, everything's okay. How are we doing? Or whatever. It's like, God, like let's
Right,
don't
because
pretend that
it's
everything's
almost like
okay.
it's like the holiday period comes up, and all of a sudden there's all these adverts on TV and all this expectation of how everything should be, and things aren't that way. And it's like this pressure comes on of like, well, we now need to try and make everything perfect. Like everything needs to be perfect, everything needs to be a certain way. So there was this one, and it was just psycho, and like, and it all got blamed. And then like, honest, you won't see the UK news as much as we do, but because obviously you're not in the UK. But
Hmm.
there's been some stuff recently with a TV host who apparently for years and years and years has been sexually assaulting contestants, like groping them and stuff. So he's
Wow.
been fired, and his defense is that he has autism and that people didn't know he has autism.
Oh, so he's gonna
That
play the victim card.
right, he has autism, and it's the BBC. You'll have heard of the BBC. It's the BBC's fault that they didn't recognize he had autism and they didn't support him enough. And I'm like, hmm. So I had the similar thing of like, oh, like, well, mate, we think your dad's autistic or this, that, and the other. And I'm like, look, he might be, but that doesn't like we can't just put a label, we can't package a label and excuse any kind of behavior.
Hmm.
But anyway, so it came to a head. One of the things, so at this point, I'm well in the nervous system training. Like we're a couple of Christmases in. I've probably spent a year, maybe 18 months at this point, having weekly stuff for me. I also then spent 2 years training in it. So like I'm a bit more able. But one of the things that I got told was in the kind of whole fawning thing and the people pleasing and all the rest of it is that shift when you've got the ability to be the bigger animal. Like that's the thing I got
Than
told.
the oppressor.
Yeah, so they come at you,
Yeah.
and it's like, can you hold the space? Not like attack back bigger, but it's like, can you hold the space? So rather than sort of fawning and backing down and going into the freeze, like when they come at you, can you just
Can
hold the
you
space?
be with the discomfort of the situation?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But if we like went into mammalian terms, like be the bigger animal, and I just kept getting this barrage of stuff back, and in the end, I just sent this email off. And it was like, I'm talking like I'm going through like ACE scores, like my adverse childhood
You're
experiences,
educating.
stuff, all of the things that had happened to me. Like there's some compassion in there as well, like saying like I get this is all what happened to you, but this is what you've done to me. No one seems to want to take accountability of it. These are all the impacts that I've had. This is my A score. This is what it means for me and my health. I actually want to go away and do some stuff that means that this is not like the prophecy of what's going to happen to me in my life because I'm really not here for it. Um, and I've never felt loved by you. I've never felt accepted, and I've never felt good enough. And something about my ability to just challenge and be like, I'm sorry, the gloves are off now because I'm not having this anymore. I'm not having you blaming me for it.
Mm,
I then got an email back from my dad saying, sorry.
mm.
Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you've never felt this way. I've always loved you. I've always approved of you. I'm sorry that I failed. But like a little bit victimy still. Like, almost
Sure.
like, oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry that I've so failed you, blah, 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 blah. So still then didn't see them for another 15 months after this. Maybe even 20, maybe even 2 and a bit years. But we did sort of exchange these messages in December of 2023. And I sort of said to him what I've just said to you. I was like, he was like, oh, I'm really sad about our situation because we're 3 years in at this point. And I was like, well, I'm sad too. I'm like, no daughter actively chooses not to speak to her parents.
So this is like, are you breaking the no contact as this is happening? Like, is that kind of what's going on?
Yeah, a bit. So maybe no contact isn't fair. Maybe it's like almost no
Partial,
contact.
partial contact.
Almost no contact.
Yeah.
Because everyone they just get weird. So it would be basically no contact, but a bit crazy around Christmas time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then like a bit crazy around like
Birthdays.
birthdays as well.
Yes.
Especially because I share my birthday with my dad, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Double dose there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so then so that's with my dad, and then my mum messaged me and basically says, "Shall we try again? Do you want you pick the weekend? You pick the weekend. Do you want to come and stay for a night?" And we'll try again. And this is about 3.5 years in. And it was hilarious, right? Because all the stuff they still used to do, like making comments about too much toilet roll being used, or dad putting certain coffee pods out that we could use in the morning because they didn't want us to use
Oh
our
my God. Get
special
out of my
coffee
head
pods.
again.
He didn't want us to use his special coffee pods. But rather than me getting triggered about it, I sort of went back upstairs and laughed and that. I was like, I haven't spoken to these fuckers for 3.5 years. You'd think he'd be like, my daughter can have whichever fucking coffee pot she wants,
Yeah.
right? But all the patterns still very much the same. But I was different. And when we
Yeah.
came away from that, Nat reflected, because we've been together 17.5 years, right? So he's been with me for a long, long time and seen all of this. And he said, it's the first time I've ever seen you with your parents where you didn't become their little girl.
Mm. What's it feel like to hear that?
really empowering. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been doing the work and it's been working.
Yeah, because there's parts in that journey where you're like, is this working? Should I just blue pill myself again? You know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
having that validation that probably wasn't very readily available when we were young, that's got to feel really good after. Because this is, we were kind of talking about how before how a lot of mindset work, modern healing work is ego development and it's leaving the body because we want to feel better. We want to raise our vibration, and this work is soul work because it's really diving deep into those depths and meeting those parts that have been exiled. That's what trauma is. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not having the
yeah.
capacity and shunning the parts that we are told that don't belong.
100%. And it is brutal, right? Now, so the last year, just to finish this off, the
Yeah.
last year, they've been to stay. I had a really nice weekend. Saw them on my birthday and had this really, really nice time. And then they're coming here again in a couple of, yeah, not this weekend, the weekend after. So I will have seen them 3 times this year. And what was interesting, after I saw them around my birthday in May, a couple of weeks later, I actually had the desire to call them. I haven't called them, like I have not called them on the phone since 2020.
Mm.
I had the desire to call them just for a chat, and we had this lovely chat. And then Nat had a bit of a health scare, and I called them, and like that would have been like massive anxiety panic in the past, of like them trying to fix in, zoom in, and all the rest of it. And it was like there was concern, but in such a different way. In such a different way. And I'm going to Bali at the end of the month for 3 weeks because, I'm off to find myself. I'm off to do the next layer. I'm off to do the next layer of my spiral. I've got no idea why I need to go. I just know I need to go.
Yeah.
Um, and I get so I share that I'm going to Bali. Now, 100% in the past. Are you going to be safe? How are you going to go? What are you going to do? Blah, 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 blah. I just get a message back. That sounds fantastic. How incredible. Have an
Mm.
amazing time. So there is this very palpable shift that's happened, but also I have spent years. It's like when clients are like, "Oh, I'm still crying, or I'm crying all the time, or I feel tired all the time." And like, what are you going to say? It's like, yeah, well, carry on,
Yeah.
carry on. Because when you're actually in the work and you are doing the work, I spent most of 2022 exhausted and crying. I mean, and then your partners are like, "Is something wrong with you? What's going on?" Or you
I'm
like, and I worked through a massive shame. I had a headache for about 4 weeks. And he's like, I think you need to go and see a doctor. I'm like, I don't need to go and see a doctor. My body's
fine.
just working through some stuff. And he's
Mm.
like, I think you need to go and see a doctor. I'm like, I don't need to. I don't like doctors. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think I need to go and see
For
a
good reason, I
doctor.
imagine.
Yeah. Um, but but you're right. And I think the problem as well is you've got this like so I started doing personal development work because I completely bought into if I do this personal development work, then I am going to get to feel good all of the time.
Mm.
And I'm going to get to resolve all of my problems and it's all going to feel amazing. Now, I would say I'm at a point in time in my life right now where actually things are feeling pretty good. Marriage is pretty good. Even when we trigger each other, we sort of catch but he's been doing the therapy as well, right? We catch ourselves quite quickly. We turn things around pretty well. But I still have days where I feel like shit. The first day of my period's always interesting. But on balance, overall, I feel like I've entered what I like to call my joy era.
Mm.
But 2022, I cried for a year, pretty much. Then I was angry for a year, pretty much. Then there was lots more crying. I spent a lot of time in therapy with the therapist being like, you need to grieve this more. I'm like, how much more fucking grief do you want me to get out of my system?
Mm.
I'm like, because it's either you need to grieve this or you need to feel this fear. I'm like, how much is there?
An
And then also
empty, bottomless pit.
an empty bottomless pit, right? But and at the same time, it's so worth it because then you get to feel again, you get to feel alive, that feeling of, oh my God, I'm alive.
Yes.
I am alive. And the first time I said that and I realized that and I felt that it was in a somatic session. And it's like I'd literally had this sensation, like the visual of me pulling myself out of this vat of tar that I'd been drowning in my whole life. And it's like I could breathe for the first time. And it was like, I am alive.
Mm.
I am alive. And then the tears that came with that, of this like realization of I am alive. And the thing is, it's so hard to describe it in a way that isn't going to make people run for the hills, right? But at the same time, I think sometimes this journey finds you and you know you just have to carry on with it. Um, and it's incredible. And I can't even remember where we started before I went off on my little tangent.
Oh
But
no, no. I mean, again, it's so every time you do, there's points in this world journey, and I'm sure you felt this way, where you feel like nobody else feels like this except me. And I
Mhm.
am half the time I'm laughing over here. It's because, well, Louise is hilarious, but also like our stories are so freaking similar.
Yes, yes,
Um, it's mind-boggling to me. There's something you said, and I'm actually losing what I was gonna say. It's like it's so good to have someone that you can just kind of laugh about the dark shit with, that you can relate to, and that you can have these conversations with and say, yeah, me too. It's exactly how I feel. And there's so much healing just in someone saying, like, I understand, I get it. Like I
yeah.
know what you're dealing with. And here's what I did.
Yeah, 100%. And I've always very much broken the rules on that. And to begin with, I used to really beat myself up. I'm like, I overshare, I talk about things too much, I share my experiences too much. And then I was like, no, do you know what? That's just who I am. That's my sort of special sauce. And people are either gonna like it because they're going to relate to it and they're going to realize that I've been through what they've been through and they're going to know that I can help them because I've also like I've got the lived experience as well as the pieces of paper, or they're going to be like, yeah, she's not for me. Um, but it's such an important piece of the puzzle for me of like because if we can normalize it, it's why I like group spaces as well. If we can normalize the experience, it just takes the shame out of it, but it also takes the fear and the panic out of it. Like someone sent me a message earlier. So I do stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. And my Facebook just automatically posts to Instagram, but my Instagram is like tumbleweed zone. I wouldn't say I get massive engagement anywhere, but Instagram is like absolute tumbleweed zone. And one of the ladies in my mastermind, she's like, I'm thinking she's got this new idea. She's in the like the wealthy witches group, so she's got a mission.
Hmm.
And but how do you cope when you like just post stuff out there and then no one responds? And I was like, well, I said it isn't quite as bad on LinkedIn and Facebook as it is on the other stuff. Um, but it's the people that can reach out because you're sharing things that people aren't necessarily going to comment on it, but they're going to see it, they're going to read it, they're going to take it in, and they're going to know, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone, even though it like goes against the thing of all that bullshit about, oh, we should all pretend to be perfect and happy and wonderful all the time. It's like, well, no, actually. And I think people want real.
I think that's a big shift that we're seeing, is that people are craving authenticity, and the more and it's I love looking around and seeing. I mean, maybe it's my reticular activating system seeing what I
Mm.
just see all the time, but I see wellness everywhere, and I get super excited about it, and just have less and less tolerance for anything but
Yeah.
realness.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So there's the camp of the people that are really interested in the realness. Sorry if you can hear the dog, by the way. I think there's a delivery happening. There's the people that are really interested in the realness, and then, but the thing is, because the realness it's not really the easier path. Let's
Hmm.
be clear, right?
Hmm.
It's the real path, and I think long term it is the easier path. But I think people do still very much get caught by the shiny object syndrome of, oh, but there's this quick fix over here, or maybe I can spiritual bypass, or maybe
I
I
do.
can just do this thing, or all the rest of it, because we all want that like instant thing right now, immediately. And of course, yeah, I mean, and I do as well. But actually, the power is in like, can we pause? Can we slow down enough? Can we be in our bodies? Can we feel what's there? Can we work through what's there? Can we be curious about it? And can we take responsibility for ourselves? Even like when stuff's going on in my outside world now, I'm like, okay, well, how is this mirroring back to me something that's happening within me that I need to look at?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like once you're tapped into that awareness, It's like what I say with the nervous system lens. I did health and wellness and self-improvement for 20 years, and then when I found this, everything makes so much more sense because in the absence of the nervous system lens, it's all the ego development. It's all relying on external sources. It's all performance and intellectual. And um, to do this work, we have to really drop into the body and be that authentic self. And that's even something I wrote down as a question is like, you know, it seems like there was a point in your journey where you had a major understanding of it in your mind, but you just weren't feeling the way that you had hoped to feel. And I think that's when you really shifted and went into more of a somatic lens. And I think that's highlighting two things. I think there's a war going on between the top down and the bottom up people. And I
Mhm.
also am a huge believer in there's no one modality that works for one person, that it's usually a combination of several things.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also don't think it's the like there's like a set combination for people either.
Mm,
Like I think it's incredible that there's this whole host of different tools out there that people can play around with and explore. And so for me, I did the mindset stuff first. I did the intellectualizing, but also like I was trained as a lawyer. I came from a, like a family where emotions were not permitted
hmm
and things that were intellectual was glorified, right? So it makes perfect sense that in order to start to get into this world and into this space, I needed to understand it cognitively, right? I
hmm
needed to do that understanding. But then I got to a point where I was like, I'm not sure there's a lot more understanding to be done here.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling any different. I'm still having these nightmares where I'm screaming at my parents. Like my my feelings aren't different. And then in some ways it's worse because it's like, well, now I understand it all now. So why is it not any different? Like what was the point? And so then yes, for me, the nervous system work then opened up this next level of actually getting into, and then also actually accepting that there was maybe some trauma there and some stuff stored in the
hmm
body, but actually getting into the body and the stuck sensations in the body and being able to really get into that root cause and to release from there. And then I've also explored things and I've sort of trained in it now as well around like breath work.
hmm
And then the next layer from that, kind of working with energetics or the dream or more kind of metaphysical stuff. But for me and my journey, it had to be this combination. Now, I've done bits of tapping, but not really. I've never done EMDR. The kind of somatic stuff that I've done is kind of Peter Levine's somatic experiencing stuff.
hmm
Um, and it's been amazing for me, but it doesn't mean that the other stuff doesn't work. But this was my own personal journey. And I think this is, so my podcast is called Your Way, right?
hmm
And it's so, so important that I think we respect the individual in all places because yes, when I did my nervous system training, the teaching was you should start with the nervous system stuff because it's much more efficient, it's much more effective. Well, yeah, it might be, but not if a person's completely disconnected from their body and they can't get in there. And even the idea of that is overwhelming. So then it just shuts them down further. So when we did, you'll have done orienting, right?
hmm
Yeah, right. So you do orienting, but then one of the things that we learn or that I learned to begin with, a way to sort of get into the body is you look at the back of the hand and you sort of tap like this is my hand, it is part of my body, right? And you tap until you get that felt sense, that felt sensation. So you're sort of making that link of like, oh, okay, this is my hand, it's my part of my body, and then you sort of work up the body. I couldn't do that without dissociating. It was too intense. I could just about do it if I did it in nature, but I was so disconnected from my body, but just that feeling. And so then my coach had to be like, okay, instead of that, when you're in the shower, just notice the shower running down your back and sort of start to connect into that feeling. So noticing like the water on your spine, and obviously that's great for the vagus nerve and stuff like, but just notice the water on your spine and to then connect in from there. I mean, how much like and this was after 2 years of therapy, or maybe even slightly more than that. I mean, 2 years before, it's just no way. So Yeah, I think it's just amazing. There's loads of different tools out there, and people will get drawn to the right things for them, and then they can go and explore it.
Yeah, and that's my experience as well. And back to what you were saying about which one is first, I think that's a big, very individual journey.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, my window of tolerance is still, I thought I had this massive window of tolerance that I could handle anything because I was overriding everything up until that point. I could handle the coldest bath. I could, go 8 days without eating. I could force anything on myself. Um, but if I would have jumped in and tried to feel my feelings, you know, I started with a yoga girl, yoga teacher training type of person. And I just had so much going on in my body that I felt like my body was on fire. And she helped me, do tapping to start to understand, like, just to slow down and go, this is what I'm feeling. This is what it's like. And then from there, I went into more cognitive, and it got to the point where, and it came from um, not reading the body keeps score, sharing some stuff in a men's group. At that time, I was so into nutrition. I was running the group with two other guys, and I thought I was going to help these poor bastards that had mental health issues because it was nutritional deficiencies. And
Mm.
in my share one day, guy pulled me aside, said, "Hey, you're reading that book. That's trauma." And so I had to really, because it was so far out of my awareness. Our bodies protect us. It was so deep and unconscious, and I was so unwilling to see that I had to peel those layers back enough and build enough education to go, oh my God, okay, I have trauma. It's not all this, it's not what I think it is. The things that my body has went through, the chronic disease, the car accidents, that's not, I mean, that's trauma as well. But the real trauma and dysregulation happened early on with conditioning. And so now that I could accept that, then it was time, then it was, let's learn all about the nervous system and understand that. It's been so much learning for me because intellectualization, if I could understand it, that removes a little bit of uncertainty so that I could feel safe. And I'm doing air quotes because really that's control, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to see that enough. Oh, I've never felt safe before. Okay, so let me do tiny, tiny bits of work um, so that I'm not getting blown out. And for the first, I mean, until recently, that's what was happening too, is I presented with the wrong therapist as like this big, tough, strong guy. But my window of tolerance was so tiny. So when I would do work, I would get blown out for weeks and months and just go into this shame cycle because I had all this perfection tendency stuff too. And how dare I be sick and not be well and not be okay. Um, and then from there, you learn follow your impulse and listen to your body. And then you learn and you try to control everything. The perfection stuff comes in. And then you realize, and this is a big one for me, I get chills as I say this. It's like you don't have to figure anything out anymore. You just got to trust your body and you just got to let your nervous system be the map and the guide. And it's not that, it's not like expecting some big release in a session. It's just like this is the lifestyle. This is just like eating healthy. I'm going to show up when it's my session and I'm going to do my work. I'm going to process that over the next couple of days and I'm going to show up and do it again. And if I need to take a break, believe it or not, I might rest this time. And so it's constant evolution and improvement. And what I wanted to talk about next is, you talked about your way. I didn't even catch that when I was looking at your podcast, but I love it. How has your way of helping clients shifted from 2018 and this burnout to now? And I'm bringing this up because you promised me that we would get weird on this podcast.
Woo! Is it time to get weird?
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, but the bit, if you were listening to the very early bit of the podcast, when I first started the podcast, it was called the Embodied Life Coaching Podcast.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like however many episodes of that, 30 odd episodes of that, and then I shifted it to your way. So against all of the great advice of the business coaches, and I fully
Right.
recommend everybody ignores all advice for business coaches because
Mm.
really you are the answer.
Hmm.
Um, and that's super important as well, isn't it? Even like when you're talking about therapists and all the rest of it, it's recognizing that. just because someone in front of you is a therapist doesn't mean that they've done all their own work or they don't have
Mhm.
their own stuff. And it is very, very easy to be in a place where they're kind of putting their patterns on you without you realizing it. So you said then, like, well, maybe I'm going to rest. Well, you can very easily work with someone who's like, well, no, you need to push harder, or you need to get up in the morning, or it's just your excuses, or it's not burnout, it's not tired, you're just hiding. And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm just tired.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's so, so important. But anyway, so I start off. I'm doing my diploma. I remember very, very vividly it being very confronting because you had to look at your own stuff. And I thought until this point that I was an open book. And I remember writing down in my diploma thing, like, I don't ever want to be a life coach. I don't want to deal with people's emotions. Don't ever want to have to deal with people's emotions. So I start off doing the career coaching. Now, I suspect because if we sort of get a bit, well, this isn't freaky at all, but what I now believe is that we come here with a purpose and a mission and like we're souls having a human experience and we kind of contract before we come down to come and do this work and there's people that we're destined to help and there's people that we're destined to meet. So I think that was playing out before I necessarily had an awareness of that. So I have these amazing clients come to me wanting help with their career, but they're all sharing their childhood trauma with me.
Hmm.
They were all sharing, oh, my dad said I'd never amount to anything, all of these different pieces. So to begin with, my interest in trauma was around, like, if I'm going to support these people properly, I didn't want to become a therapist. I was like, if I'm going to support these people properly, I need to have a better understanding of what's going on and how I can support them. So I'm sort of doing traditional career coaching. Sometimes, so I was bulimic as a kid, like all basically all the different food control ways that I could have had. Yeah, I've done that. So I remember I had a client who was a binge eater. So she wasn't being sick as well, but she was a binge eater. She wanted some help with that. And then there was all of her childhood stuff that was coming up. And again, like quite a lot. And I was like, this like my career coaching diploma doesn't really doesn't really cut this. So there's all these different things starting to come up. And so even though outwardly I'm talking about career change, different people were coming to me. 2020, I did my first group program that was called Have a Job You Love. And it was all about giving people the tools they needed to do a job that they enjoyed. But again, it's the same thing. Everyone's just bringing their trauma because everything because people have got so much trauma, they get a space where it's safe for them to share all of a sudden, and it all comes out. So that was that iteration. Then I wanted to help people have a good life, but then I'm in this mindset world of like, if we do enough work, then everything's going to be amazing. So I had a group called An Extraordinary Life. But that was really about like the foundations of what's your strengths, what's your values, what are boundaries, how do you build your confidence and self-belief, how do you have a difficult conversation, all of that kind of foundational stuff. Then I start doing the nervous system work. The people in that group were not down for the body or nervous system stuff at all
How did you know that?
because I tried and they were not down for it.
Like, what were you like, hey, let's fill our butt in our chair and let's look around? And it's like, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, can't feel anything. This is weird. Not sure why you're doing this. One of the guys in the end was like, "Oh no, I really get it. Like the body, like the key is in the body." Um, but the thing that really, really piqued my interest when I was doing all my training was we did a month on family dynamics. Family dynamics, patterns in the family, and I was like, "This is what I'm here to help people with,"
Mm,
because it had been so fresh, like it'd been so fresh for me. So this is April 2022. I then transitioned. So this is probably around ish the time that you might have started to see me doing stuff.
hmm.
So I then start talking about childhood trauma, how the perfectionism, how the people pleasing, how all the stuff that in people's jobs is actually really a result of this underlying stuff. And I did a program called Happy Families. And that was
Mm.
all about addressing family dynamics. And that was interesting. That was a massive shift. So my clients went from like lawyers, accountants, doctors to all of a sudden coaches and therapists who wanted this space to work through this stuff at a deeper level, wanted to do the body work, um, and wanted to dive into it. So Happy Families then became Address and Unlock, which was all about address the past, unlock the future. So you can see it's like as I'm morphing and I'm shifting, like my stuff is morphing and shifting as well. Um, then that became Your Way. So there's a mastermind called Your Way, which again was like it was basically ultimately about building ultimate self-trust and working through all the different facets of like relationships and life and money and stuff. So you can do things your way.
Mhm.
And then this really interesting stuff started happening to me from 2022. And I recognize now that it's quote unquote normal, but it's like you deal with enough of this lifetime stuff, and all of a sudden, it's like, oh, by the way, you've got past lives that you need to look at. Now, I was raised a Catholic.
Oh
Past
yeah.
lives were not part of my like background experience, but all of a sudden this stuff started happening. Or I had these like experiences on retreats where I was like, well, my name isn't Louise. My name is Persephone. Didn't mean anything to me. Everyone else reels because they've all heard of like the Greek, the goddess of the underworld. Um, and these sort of things start happening. And like I get back from the retreat and like I'm not kidding, not just like once, like over and over again, I start getting stung by bees and wasps.
What in the
I'm like,
world?
oh my God, the nature is attacking me. So what so the more I pay
Nature is
attention to
attack. Okay, hold
myself,
on, hold on, hold on. What does it mean if nature is attacking you? What did that mean to you?
well, I kind of saw it as a sign of like I need to pay attention.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
there's stuff I'm not paying attention to. And I do like
Mhm.
and I love, I'll go and be like, what's the spirit meaning of this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Chat GPT.
yeah. Well, no, Chat GPT wasn't a
Right.
thing then. But yeah, now absolutely Chat GPT, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, can you help me interpret this thing, please? Um,
Look into your
but
crystal ball and help me.
except for the problem with ChatGPT is it tells you exactly what you want to hear,
I
doesn't it?
know, I know, I know. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, yeah. But so various things started happening that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I've started getting like much more intuitive. I'd had sort of had vague bits of psychic stuff as a kid. But really, really interested in things like crystals and oracle cards and incense and sage. And my husband thought I was a nutter. And I did a retreat in 2022, and there was a therapist there supporting, and he'd made some comment about, oh, I know a witch when I see one. All of this stuff felt really, really uncomfortable for me. And part of that actually was because the person I trained with to do the nervous system stuff had taught very much about, we'd learned about the gene keys and we'd learned about the I Ching and we'd learned about human design. And it was all like, it was all very spiritual. And then partway through the second year, when I was helping her do the training, so I did the training and then I helped her do the training. So I taught other people how to do like embodiment, hold space in an embodiment call. She had a Christian awakening. That might not be the right phrase, but basically anything that was spiritual, she denounced, said it was evil, it was the devil's work. If it wasn't in the Bible, if it wasn't strictly in the Bible, then it was wrong and it was bad. And this was at this point in time where I'd worked with her for 18 months. And she'd really, really helped me to own and be all of who I was. But all of who I was someone who was like a bit of a green witch and connected to the nature. So it was an absolute, like, it was this like absolute crushing blow for me. This
Because she
absolute
was
crushing blow.
denouncing everything that you were waking up to that is you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
and and a lot of the stuff that we'd done together. So like she'd done healings and stuff in the sessions.
What do you think that was? I mean, it's hard to say for someone else, but like from the outside looking in.
So I think she had been raised in a very, 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 very strict Christian religion. And I don't know if part of it was it's just her working through her thing to go back to it.
Yeah.
But like, but just for a while, there was like, I don't have a problem, whatever your beliefs are, and I'm not here to put my beliefs on anybody else. I mean, hence your way as an approach. Um, and I didn't, and it wouldn't have bothered me at all if she was like, well, now I'm a Christian, and so I believe in the Bible. It was just the fact that like when I sort of shared about my beliefs, her response was to quote Romans from the Old Testament to me, which is basically like anyone who worships the trees and the land is godless. And then some like absolute fucking nonsense about and people that do it in this way, and this is why people become homosexual and all that. It was just this horrendous passage from the Old Testament. But it really, really threw me for a loop. So when I started to explore astrology and crystals and witchcraft and being connected to nature and the moon and all of these different things, there was this real reticence in me to share any of it because I didn't want any of my clients to feel isolated in the way that I'd felt isolated. Like I was like, I didn't ever want them to have that experience. So even if I would share bits of stuff, it would be like heavily caveated,
Yeah.
or like, oh, there's this thing, and I sort of still do that a little bit now, take it or leave it. But it was very much hidden, but it was getting stronger and stronger in me and more important in me.
Mm.
And I've always felt, not always, but probably since about 2019, 2020, like I've been able to feel this like power within me. And it scared me. It terrified me. I'm like, I know it's there, but I'm kind of scared. So I'll just leave it over there somewhere. And then it was towards the end of last year. And I think, to be honest, it's because there is this like global awakening thing
Yeah.
happening, whatever it
Yeah.
is that's going on.
Not if you're
But
watching the news, but yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's just recommend to everybody not to watch the news.
Yeah, turn it off.
And then there was just this massive thing that came through me of like, you have to stop hiding. You're ready. You need to do this work now. Like you have to do this
Which
next
is
level
in
of
the
work.
energy, if like the because this is you're describing. Sorry to interrupt you. You're
All right.
describing exactly what happened with me and another friend, where it's like we weren't in connection anymore, and I felt myself making myself small and hiding and walking on eggshells. And as you're sharing the story, and that I recognize myself, is it's almost healing that early wound with your family of saying you're not allowed,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
okay, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
And so that's a very defiant stepping into your power moment of realizing like that's you and this is me and I don't feel good making myself small and I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I am going to share my daily oracle slash tarot slash whichever cards happen to decide to jump out at me in the morning on Instagram and Facebook every day. I can't do
Oh,
it on the, I can't, it's like, go
I
ahead.
need a, I need a, so with Irene, I've been meaning to ask this in the group.
Oh, yeah.
Give me a couple different, I love doing the card pulls in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So give me some, what are they, like what are the different card decks called, if you will, that you
So
like
you've
maybe?
got, you've got tarot cards,
Okay.
which a lot of people associate with being a little bit dark. I don't think they are, but the tarot cards, they're always the same structure. So you've got like the major arcana and the minor arcana. So you've got like the pentacles and the swords and the wands and something else. Put me on the spot. And then you've got things like, the tower and the hierophant and the wheel of fortune. So that's like the tarot cards, and there's lots of different versions of the tarot decks that you can get.
Okay.
And then you've got oracle cards. Now, oracle cards, I would say, are a little bit softer
That sounds like what I need right now.
and they've got a bit more meaning. So
Yeah.
the oracle cards that I love, and they maybe are a little bit feminine based, as in like they're all pictures of women on, but are the Sacred Rebel oracle cards. They are
Oh,
fucking epic.
you're speaking my
Except that,
language.
right, you will love them. I got mine on Amazon.
I'll be,
We're
I'll
not
be,
we're not plugging Amazon, but like it's just convenient, isn't it? So you
yeah,
probably be
I'll
able
be
to
getting
find a
that later.
Sacred Rebel. Sacred Rebel. Now, the good and the bad. So sometimes with the cards, you just get the cards and you look at the cards and you're sort of like intuitively trying to figure out like what is this card saying to me? What does it mean? What does the card evoke? And then you might have a little description and then you sort of work through the description. These bad boys, the descriptions are long. I mean, like sometimes they're 4 or 5 pages long and they take you through a whole healing process and they share loads of things and they're just incredible and they're magical. But you just got to be willing to invest a little bit of time.
I'll just
For
another.
me, though,
I'll add another thing to my list of all my to-dos. You know what I mean? Like when we're healing, and it feels like you gotta
but
do everything.
but what I've found, and I think this is true for a lot of people, especially people that have got that kind of trauma background, meditation in and of itself isn't necessarily that helpful because you might dissociate. So for me, my morning routine is I sit my ass on a meditation cushion. But then I've got a Tibetan sound bowl. So I do my sound bowl, I burn my sage, do my sage, and then I also actually do now have some crystal balls. My
Nice.
husband got me them for my birthday in a kind of like I want you to feel accepted, even though I think you're weird. Here's right. And I did this kind of visualization thing with my coach, and it was really wild because I don't normally get visuals, but like
Mm,
clear as day, Merlin the wizard rocks up, like blue hat, blue cape, and he says, whenever you need me, you go into the wood, you tap on any tree 3 times. And the way you need to use your crystal ball is you have to hold it to your heart and you have to sit quietly and breathe and wait till you get your daily message. And
that's
every
cool.
day, sometimes I just pick it up and it's only ever a sentence. It's like dead easy. So I sit and then I breathe, I do my crystal ball. And what I do with my cards is I shuffle the deck. I just shuffle the deck once. If a card falls out, happy days, that's my card. If I don't, I
Mm,
put it down and I shuffle the next deck. But that process, and then I read the cards. So that process is me sitting relatively still, connecting into my body, connecting into like the stuff and the intuition that comes through in the different ways. And that is my form of meditation.
hmm
That's like my stillness practice every day, but isn't sitting there with my eyes closed, just breathing because no.
hmm Do you do, as you're saying, I love that process, by the way. I think it's amazing. And it's so cool how the more regulated we get, that intuition is like, mine comes in analogies and visuals sometimes, and it's like, it's so clear talking to you. But I was wondering, as you're saying that, do you also do readings for your clients? Like, do you connect with guides and source and things like that, or no?
Um, no, not at the moment. So in the new master, so I birthed this new mastermind in January, right? Which is Wealthy Witches, which is for people that know they have this big mission and purpose and all of the rest of it. Now there is stuff in there around connecting with your guides. So there's a meditation in there that helps people to connect in with their
What's the name
guides.
of
So
it?
I kind of do it in that way. What?
What's the name of that? Because there's when I did metaphysical training. I had a um, wonderful woman that was a medical medium that worked with me for a while, and there was lots of different. I'm just wondering if it's a similar, like it's growing your light was one way of doing it, and then there was like a cleaning of what are they called, the different systems of the body, like not systems,
The
but
chakras?
chakras. Yeah, different chakras.
Yeah.
You go through and you're
Yes.
bringing a light and you're sending stuff up. Like, what's yours like to
So
connect?
the one connecting into a guide is more like sort of a visualization of like, you go into a forest, you meet like someone appears, it's your guide, they're here, what are they here to share you? There's to share with you. There's also one where you go and you meet your ancestors, like what are your ancestors here to share with you? There's a kind of calling back disenfranchised parts of your soul in there. We do
Soul
like a
retrieval.
shamanic, yes, soul retrieval,
hmm
shamanic middle world journey. Um, so there's lots of different pieces in there, but it isn't something that I necessarily overly do. Interestingly, a one-on-one client came to a session last week and said, "I want to do cards with you," but she had the cards with her and she shuffled them and we worked through them intuitively. So at the moment, I don't actively go out to be like, right, we're going to work with these cards and we're going to do these things. I might pull a card at the start of a session, particularly a group session, or I might share things out. But the way I work is definitely more it's kind of more practical with a spiritual edge. So we might do a visualization, we might do kind of we talk through about spell work, but at the crux of it all, it's about how do you get the person, the nervous system, all of it into a space where they're like, this is who I am, this is what I'm here for. This is my mission. This is what I came here to do. And now I'm going to feel safe to put that out there in the world. And so that is about, connecting with your intuition, connecting with your psychic gifts, connecting with whatever it is that's your flavor of magic, but also at the same time, working through the visibility wounds, working through the muddy wounds, working through all of the shit basically. So it isn't just like, well, let's bypass and do all of this stuff and call in these guides. It's also like, well, what's all of the other stuff underneath? And what's been very clear to me, because I have now since, recently done things like past life regressions and gone and connected into spirit, and it's come through me rather than someone telling me. I'm like, I've come back this time to help people remember. Like people have forgotten their natural place, they've forgotten their power, they've forgotten what they came here to do. And it's my role to come and help people to remember, but do it from this like grounded, regulated state. And that's like me bringing the grounded Taurian in. Um, which is a world away from like, I will help you get promoted in your career. But for me, it's had to be that slow burn of, but it's interesting. Even if I look back 7 years ago, the themes are all still the same. How can I help? How do I help a person to say it's okay to be all of me and really mean it? Which was my first goal when I did my training as in the diploma. That's all I wanted. But what I
What's so
didn't,
interesting there is how do I help somebody be all of me and feel comfortable, safe doing that? Because that is what it requires to come out of the fatigue and the shutdown. Because now I'm not performing and forcing and fixing and trying to please.
yeah,
It's like so full
yeah.
circle.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but that's been the really, really interesting thing for me. And there's still the next layer of the spirals, right? So we're recording this on the 5th of August. I don't know when it'll go live, but at the start of July, I saw there's still some of these patterns. I was like, right, I've got some codependency coming up with some clients. I've got some people pleasing still going on. I've got these things going on. And it's like, right, now I need to work, and now I need to work through my next layers of these spirals
Hmm.
because I think like the journey carries on, but it's like, but it's kind of, and and maybe there's a version that's all of me that's an even all of me more all of me version that this is all of me for right now.
Hmm.
um but yeah, absolutely, like but fundamentally all of this stuff requires that internal safety. And because of course people are going to look at this, or people are going to see me, or like people in the village that I'm connected to on Facebook are going to think I've absolutely lost my mind. I did a lovely podcast with a lady last week, and she was like, it was brilliant. She was like, but you went from, oh, it's very clear that Louise is an ex-lawyer and she's very professional, and sometimes she talks a bit about trauma, and sometimes it's slightly edgy. She's like, and then all of a sudden you're there on LinkedIn in a cape, in a cape, like I'm a witch.
Oh no, I'm seeing that and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I've also, as I've dove in more to this to prepare, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like that makes so much sense. We have this disconnection from ourselves. We're taking all these protective parts and identifying as people pleasers and perfect and blah 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 to get love and attention. And then we see all that, we grieve all that, we work through all those things that were everywhere all at once too much that we couldn't feel. We feel the grief, we feel the anger, we feel um, the shame, and then now we've moved through that. We're more regulated, and we start to pay more attention to our body and to our guides, and it's just a I see the process and it just makes so much sense. It's like we're just becoming more of what you always were, more
Yeah.
human, not this conditioned, controlled slave on this planet.
Yeah, absolutely. But then how dangerous, right? Because at this point, then you can't be controlled. Because we also haven't talked about, and I don't think we necessarily need to, but like the rabbit holes around like what some people would consider sort of conspiracy theories of like what is really like, what are all the systems and the controls and all of the things going on out there that seek to suppress us and control us, and what happens when we open our eyes to that? And it's
Woo!
all part of this incredible unfolding process, which is just incredible. And also, but it also just has to happen in the way that it happens. And the wild thing now, and this feels wild, is I look back now from this place, from the freaky place. No, I look back now from this very deeply connected, intuitive, switched on kind of um unity consciousness place, and I'm like, well, holy fuck. I chose it all of it, because all of it was required. Every single piece of the puzzle, when you layer it all together, when you end up with, my mission is here to help people work through the shadows, work in the mess, love and accept all of themselves, work through their difficult family stuff, work through their trauma stuff, reconnect back to themselves, regulate their nervous system, and then feel safe and empowered to be like, this is who I am, this is what I'm here to do, and do it in a way that works for them and is their way. So it isn't about hustling and pushing and proving and trying to do all of these different pieces. And then I look back and I'm like, well, of course. Well,
Yeah, that's
of
how
course,
I'm.
every single piece of that puzzle was required to get me to here.
Yeah, and I know you just touched on it, and we could do a whole nother podcast about this, I'm sure. But that I'm realizing that as well, like with the whole political stuff here. I've never paid attention to that. I've hated it, and
Mm,
it's when Trump got shot in his ear. I'm like, what's going on? And I started to see how the media was all against him. There was nothing about him. Not to say that Trump's great or anything like
mhm.
that. I think
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
playing a role in this great awakening.
Hmm.
Um, and then to through I'm Irene's husband Seth wrote this book about the multiverse. And it's like, how did we get here? And I was like, Seth, let's talk about aliens. Like we're smoking a joint one night, not me and him, but somebody else, and I'm like, what is going on? I was like, I've been hanging out with all you girls doing this nervous system work. I believe in aliens. I don't think we landed on the moon. Like, all these different, all these. I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I cry every day. And they're like, "Oh, you got to go talk to Seth about the alien stuff. He wrote a book," and blew my mind wide open. And it's like now I don't have to look at that anymore because I know it was for me to understand what other people are going through and what's out there,
Hmm.
um, and make a decision and be able to help people. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, it's all control and stress and poison and sickness to keep us separated, to keep you away, disconnected. And if I really want to help people connect, and obviously I'm trying to help myself first, then I have to kind of see things for what they are and really work through the grief of that and the pain of that. And that's kind of where I've got to this point now where I just kind of threw my hands up and I'm like, okay, I can control this environment. Not that I need to control it, but I can exist in this environment and be happy and excited about life. But I cannot go into this um, distraction from this work that says hate this person. This means you're bad, and it's just it all makes so much sense, and it's all so perfectly designed, and it's designed in a way that it's hard to wake up because as you do that, you shame yourself and other people shame you, and now you're weird, and that's what I want to say to you. I think weird is dope. Like, I think weird is awesome. I don't want to be around a freaking normie that wants to talk about the weather. It's like there's so much more to this life, and we're so much more powerful, and like there's just a lot more going on than this like look over here birdie stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why when you say like the whole thing about like awakening,
Hmm.
there's many layers. There's many layers.
Ah! What does it mean to be awake?
Well, quite. I think, but I reckon that's quite individual as well, isn't it? But I
Yeah.
guess for me, it's about you no longer just automatically accept everything that you are told and the systems and all the rest of it. Maybe it's just like ability to sort of critically think
Well, your
and
intuition is
question.
there, so you can smell bullshit from a mile away.
Yeah.
It may not be, so mine is like this. It's not like I have, I'm gonna use your crystal ball. So I don't have a crystal ball that I can see the future into, but I can feel like, ooh, somebody just said, so that's powerful. Pause right there, or that doesn't feel right. Tell me more about that. And then you can kind of piece things together. But it's yeah, the more we regulate, the more intuition. And that's what I learned from Irene. That's what's required from this work. I can't come into this work with an agenda. I can't come in here with an expectation for you, an outcome. I used to be, you like this. I had a client that I was working with, and he hired me for more nervous system stuff after seeing my podcast interview with Irene. And he wanted nervous system work. I was still doing more health coaching, but I'm like, I'm a coach. I've been doing this for 2 years. I've done a lot of capacity building myself. Like I can help. And I learned from Irene to meet the moment, and to really, and that takes a lot of self-trust. It takes a quantum field. Um, it's not coming in with an ego. And I said, you know what? I'm going to trust this and I'm going to try this. And I sat down for my first call with him, not trying to come in with an agenda. And I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And neutral, and after a couple sessions, he's like, man, I gotta tell you, he's like, something has really shifted, and I feel like you're with me now. And he's like, man, 2 or 3 sessions ago, I fucking hated your your like my performance, my people pleasing. He's like, you had all
Oh,
this energy you were coming in with, and I'm over here fatigued, and he couldn't understand. He's like, fuck this guy. And now that just makes so much sense. And that's speaking of witchcraft, that's the magic. It's in the moment.
yeah, and the thing is, we are all so much more powerful than we are led to believe. And I don't mean like, broomsticks and spells or whatever, but that deep self-connection, the intuition, the connection to whatever your version of a higher whatever is, um, there's stuff there. And I think it is something that seems to be a natural consequence of doing the healing work and the nervous system work and coming back in connection, is that realization of, oh, we're really, really powerful.
Oh, it's the great unwinding back to self and human and authenticity. And I
Yeah.
love that, and I'm gonna tie a bow on this thing. I love that you have this, I call it pain to purpose journey, where you had, in 2018, something's not right. This life is not conducive, to what I want. I'm gonna make some changes. And through that journey, you realize that, you love helping people, that you've got a gift for it, and you teach other people to be their own medicine and be the healing that they seek. And I know that you've got a program coming up in August. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then what it would be like in case people are like, man, how do I work with Louise, and what would that look like? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first things first, I've moved it to the end of September because I'm going to Bali for 3 weeks, and I
Mm,
realized it was like the people pleaser in me that was like, I should go to Bali, but I should still try and deliver. And I was like, no, I just want to go to Bali for me. So the program has been moved. It will be starting at the end of September now. Yes, thank you.
mhm,
Um, so there's a mastermind that I run called Wealthy Witches. Don't be put off if you're a man. It's for everybody who feels drawn to it. But this is really for people who are in that space where they've done some healing work, they've done some nervous system work. There is this deeper connection. It doesn't need to be the level of connection that we've just talked about, but this feeling of I'm not doing what I came here to do. There's a bigger vision, there's a bigger mission, there's a bigger purpose within me. I'm kind of here at this point in time to help in some way heal, elevate the consciousness of humanity, or in whatever way. And you want a space to hold you through that process, not a space to tell you what to do,
mm,
not a space to give you like these are the 5 steps that you need to follow, but a space that's really going to help you through kind of mindset, nervous system, energetics work, breath work, visualizations, meditations, all of that good stuff, to
mhm.
go
Short
through
short
this
list.
process. Yeah, yeah, yeah. To go through this process of, well, what is my mission? What is the paradigm of wealthy witches, which basically, in short, is like anti-hustle culture. Um,
Hmm.
and then how do we work through all of these different layers, but also how do we get to a space where really, for me, all of my work is like the you first approach. It's like you've got this mission and vision and purpose, and it's important, but how do you still put you at the center of your life? So
Mm.
you're not sacrificing yourself for your work. It's like your work is a part of your life, but it's not your entire life. And how do you sort of allow all of yourself to be seen? So that is that space. Um, it's a whole combinational hybrid thing. So there's one-on-one coaching, there's group coaching as well, and then group and one-on-one messenger support, depending on people's propensity or desire to travel. And there is a retreat that will be in March next year.
Wow.
Um,
Where's
I
the
think there's
retreat?
in Well, depending on how many people that come, it'll either be at my home or in the vicinity, but basically in the British Cotswolds countryside, lovely space.
Wow.
And we're going to do it on I mean, you guys are going to be Northern Hemisphere, spring equinox, so the 20th to the 22nd of March. So so the mastermind will finish at the end of January. We're going to have a couple of weeks off over the holiday season. And then the retreat will be in March. If you're more in a space of like where you want to do nervous system work, you're keen to find out more about working with energy and working with the dream, but maybe like a full on like high level mastermind space isn't your thing. I also have a flexible monthly membership that people can join anytime called Time Alchemy. And they can dip in and out of that. And it's not for people that are in burnout, but it's probably people that are in an earlier stage of the journey where they're more self-focused. So they want to learn how to manage their time and take care of themselves. It's kind of once you've gone through that process and you're like, okay, now I know there's a bigger mission,
Hmm.
that's where the Wealthy Witches Mastermind comes in.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know if that answered your question, but
No,
that's
that sounds awesome. I mean, I think it's well put together. There's one thing that jumped out at me is like having a little break in between all of this work and how integration is so important. And that's one thing that Irene did with like our first intensive was like I came straight out of Smart Body, Smart Mind, a whole year of that. I finished it the week before, went right into our first, you could call it a mastermind. She would call it it's a week-long event, which was a
right.
lot. I had a massive shock trauma come out, and then I went home to be tired for a month straight, and really was didn't understand that as much. And so the second time around, we had that a lot of integration. There's a lot of downtime in the middle of the day, and I think it's so easy in this work to feel like we got to get it all done right now. That's bringing that survival energy in, and so the slow, titrated pauses allows for that everything to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like alchemize.
Yeah, massively. And like I've done one. So the first round of Wealthy Witches finishes tomorrow actually, but we've done the retreat already. And even like and that it's so important because it's so easy to go to retreats or anything like that. The whole day is absolutely rammed and you're just absolutely exhausted. So it was like start at 9, gentle movement, um, bits of stuff in the day, 2 hour gap. So like the full day, if you
Yep.
had a 2 hour gap in the afternoon, it's like go and nap, go and read, go and do something, but just have
Hmm.
some space.
Hmm.
And then we finished up about 9, half 9 in the evening, but the evening bit was chilled. Because I've been to retreats where it's like you're starting with qigong at 6 a.m. and
Well,
you're finishing and you're finishing at 11 p.m. and there's no let up in between.
that would fry me.
It fries me, and then everyone else just seems to put themselves through it, and I'm like, I'm
But no,
sorry,
because
but you're all overriding.
they're overriding. You know what we're
Yeah,
describing too is like sensitization and
yeah,
really and really being in your body and knowing what your window of tolerance is. It's really easy to shame yourself in a group and say, "Oh, I should be like them,"
yeah,
instead of I should
yeah,
be taking care of myself and doing whatever I need to do. I know that's a big shift for me.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, this has
Um,
been absolutely amazing. I was so glad to, so happy to, gosh, we went almost a little bit
I've
more than,
never been on a podcast this long. I said to my husband, I was like, I said it's in for 2 hours, but there's no way we're going to talk that long. But
oh,
we did.
I thought maybe we'd do an hour, you know, but I also have, it's so great to get on the call with you and connect because we've had this like long distance relationship where we've kind of popped in and out and kind of supported each other from a distance. And it's just so great to be here with you. It's so eerily similar, our journeys, and I know the listeners got a lot of benefits from this. Um, Before we sign off, is there anything else that you want to share? Is there any last comments or maybe telling people where to, and if not, telling people where they can find you and that kind of thing?
So I think if I just piggyback off what you just said, not everybody out there needs to be out there completely sharing their story, right? That's not everybody's path. It's not what everybody needs to do. But also, in me sharing what I've shared and in Mitch sharing what he shared, I think a lot of people will recognize these common threads and these common themes.
Hmm.
And I guess if you take nothing else away from this conversation, if part of it has resonated, just to know that you aren't alone, because so many people have these common experiences in life. And because we get told that life should be shiny and perfect, we
mm,
sort of shame ourselves for those experiences, and then we push them down. Um, but it's more common than you realize because, you know, many of our parents grew up in or just after the Second World War. There's all of these different things that happened. There was a great big narrative around, particularly in the West, you don't feel your feelings, you don't talk about emotions. You know, so we've all had these sort of relatively similar upbringings.
mm-hmm,
It's relatively rare for a child to be born into like a secure attachment with like a loving family where there isn't all of this pressure.
mm-hmm,
Um, and so it doesn't necessarily mean like go and talk to people about it or share it with your friends. But if you feel called, then why not?
mm-hmm,
But it's also just to recognize that very, very often the stuff that we hold inside us as like, oh, this is embarrassing or this is shameful or I could never talk about that. First of all, it's kind of your superpower if you could let it out and work through it. But also, it's going to be a lot more normal than you think.
mm. Amen.
Um, And then in terms of where people can find me, so most of my stuff actually is on my website, which is www.louiselewis.coaching.co.uk. I think links to the podcast and everything are on there. I'm just Louise Lewis on Facebook and LinkedIn and Louise Lewis underscore coach on Instagram. And I'm well up for people reaching out and saying hi. So if you got through the full 2 hours, first of all, come and find us so we can send you a medal.
Yeah, and you should probably go rest after this.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone should go and lie down. Can you imagine if you'd listened to this all the way through and you were quite early on in your healing journey? You definitely need to go and lie down.
Oh, you know what I would have done is I would have listened to this and then listened to the next one.
Yeah, actually, I used to do that on walks.
Binge everything, never stopping. That's what I'm learning too. You kind of mentioned this is like, oh, I don't have to be going from one thing to the other. I mean, I'm starting with, Mitch, can you rest 5% more? And in that 5%, it's given me so much more productivity, so much more awareness and appreciation for rest. And I guess this will be my last comment is like, it's so funny to me how all the woo-woo people were right. Like that's the stuff that works, connecting to your chakras, like grounding, earthing, being with your feelings, humming, wooing, whatever that is. It's like we're just so conditioned to think, I need a band-aid, I need a pill, I need something really hard and difficult. And while it is really hard and difficult, it's also super simple and natural.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Absolutely. And if we all lived in the way that we were intended to and had the support and everything that was intended, I wouldn't need to do my job, but we don't, so I do. Um, but it is a very, very natural process. And I think that's what you said as well. And I love what you said, and this will be my last comment, maybe. We'll see. Is that thing around, can I let myself rest just 5% more?
Mm,
Because to tell yourself you have to lie down for 2 hours a day would be way too much for your system,
mhm,
right? And this is what I say sometimes to clients. It's like, can you just, when you drink your cup of tea in the morning, just put your phone down and just drink your cup of tea? Can you
mm,
just start there? Can you just start there with like just a couple of minutes of just not trying to multitask? Because I think that, and you sort of alluded to this before, or you might have said it directly as well. It's like with this work, it is little bits because you've got to help your system to acclimatize. If you try and do it all in one go, you are going to absolutely screw yourself. Like
mhm,
I've had clients who I'm doing nervous system work with, they start to have a bit of a spiritual awakening. They then decide they're going to go and get a spiritual mentor, and they get themselves in all kinds of trouble because their system wasn't ready for it. They're so like discombobulated, it's not even funny.
mhm,
Like just go steady.
mhm. It's so good to have someone like you too that they can talk to if they'll listen. I know there's certain times when I will listen, and other times when I'm like right into the thing, and it's like, can you pause when that impulse comes up and have someone to really talk that through with. So instead of going right into the next thing, can you really feel, where is this coming from? I like inquiry work. Is this something that feels good for right now? Like, what does it feel like if I believe I need to do this right now? And it's like, ooh, okay, that's good. what does it feel like if I get this information and I can kind of put this on the shelf and I can let it marinate? Oh yeah, that feels really good. And so that's where the body becomes the map. And yeah, I think they're so lucky to have you. And I love having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank
Love that
you.
you're sharing your story with us. I mean, I feel like we're identical. It's so cool to see those similarities and um, love how much you're helping people. And again, thank you so much for supporting me along this way. I'm hoping this is one of our multiple podcasts that we have coming in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much for me. Thank you so much for having me on. I've obviously talked too much.
Yeah, I know. I'm fried too. Well, have a good one. I'll talk to you soon, and we really appreciate you coming on. Bye bye.